Hello, I am Ariel, and welcome back to LETC-Channel. I am so excited to do this lesson today because I know that when you make this one small correction in your pronunciation, you are going to correct maybe hundreds or literally thousands of possible errors that you might be making right now or that you might have made in the future. But once you watch this video and understand the small change that you need to make, you will be able to correct all of those errors. And that's an important thing to be able to do when one small change affects a lot. Okay, so let's get started. What is this lesson about? This lesson is about the word or the sound of, or when it's used in a word. So what happens is that most of the time students say it correctly, when or is at the beginning of a word. But a lot of English learners make mistakes when or appears in the middle of a phrase, and definitely when it appears at the end of a word. Lots and lots of mistakes are made in the pronunciation here. So what we are going to do is we are going to go step by step to see what happens to this sound at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of a word or phrase. Okay, let's begin. So when or the letters or appear at the beginning or by themselves, then or stays like or, the word or, which you know by itself, that's how you pronounce it. There is no change. It is stressed. It is strong. Okay, let's look at some words with or. The word or by itself is pronounced or. Also, organize, ornament, orphan, organic, orchard. Okay, what did you hear here? That or sounds like or, right? So far you're saying, okay, what's the big deal? The big deal is over here, so make sure you keep watching. Okay? All right, let's look at some examples. Number 1. That's an order. You can read it with me. You can repeat it after me, whatever you like. The more you participate, the more you'll master what you need to learn. Number 2. It's an oral exam. Okay? Not written oral. Number 3. This table is very ordinary. Okay? Again, or being pronunciation like or. Number 4. She works for a large organization. Organization, good. And number 5. The orchestra was amazing. All right? So, we saw that whether it was in a word by itself, whether we were saying the word by itself, or whether the word appeared in a sentence, the sound of or and the pronunciation of or remained the same. It remained like or. Now we're getting to the good stuff. Let's see what happens when we find the word or in the middle of a phrase. Okay, now we come to what happens when the word or appears in the middle of a phrase. Now, when you are speaking, you don't have to do this, but you do have to know that native speakers will do this, so this part will help you to understand them better. If you don't want to speak like this, don't speak like this. This you already do. This is to help you to understand better. And this last part is going to be very, very important to correct some of the things that you say. So, hang in there for the last part. Okay, but let's do this part now. So, what happens when or is used in the middle of a phrase? Then, or is basically a function word, and function words are shortened or reduced. So they're not only shortened or reduced, they're also linked usually to a word that becomes before, and sometimes to the word that comes after. All right? So, let's see how this works. So, we would say, for example, here. I've just written some phrases first, and then later, here, we'll see how it works in a sentence. Okay, ready? Here we go. Lunch or dinner? Okay, so we don't say lunch or dinner. When we're just speaking in regular conversation, this O would be connected to the word before, and it will sound like er. So the er now sounds like or er. Lunch or dinner? Okay. Soup or salad, rain or shine? 7 or 8? Okay. Do you see how the er now sounds like er? Okay. Let's continue. Would you like tea or coffee? Tea or coffee? Okay. Okay. Now, if you're not used to it, you might wonder what people are saying, but when you understand that the word or gets reduced, gets shortened, gets linked to a word before or a word after, it will help you to understand what people are offering you. Right? Okay. They're not offering you tears. They're offering you tea or coffee. Tea or coffee. Tea or coffee. Again, you don't have to speak like this, but you do need to understand. Next, number 2. Should I turn left or right? Left or right? Okay. If you like, you can repeat it, but you don't have to speak like that. Number 3. Am I right or wrong? Right or wrong? Okay. Again, you see what's in red is what is linked. Right? Now, let's look what happens. Look at what happens when it's linked to the word after, which happens sometimes. Number 4. Shall we talk now or later? Okay. So, now the or got connected to the word after it, and that's okay. That happens too. Number 5. You can call or send me an email, okay? So, that is also possible, that it could be linked to the word before or the word after. And now you're going to come to the most exciting part, where you're going to change your pronunciation of a whole lot of words, maybe hundreds and thousands of words, and counting these expressions. There's probably thousands. Let's look at what happens when or appears at the end of a word. Okay, so now we come to the most critical part. The part where many students make a mistake in the pronunciation of or, and that is at the end of a word. What happens is, your eyes deceive you. Your eyes see or and you want to say or. But in fact, again, in a word, when it comes at the end of a word, you need to say er and not or. So you need to say not the sound or, but the sounder. Repeat after me, er. Now we sound a little bit robotic, but it won't sound like that once we actually say it in a word. So what happens when or appears at the end of a word? It becomes reduced, shortened, and we don't stress it as much as when we were saying it at the beginning of a word, okay? So what I want you to do is to imagine that all these words down here, which in fact end in or, sound exactly like all these words in this line, which end in er. Because usually, when you see er at the end of a word, like dancer or teacher, you don't have a problem pronouncing it, right? You say it correctly because you see er and you say the sounder. So what you need to do is to take that same principle and apply it to all of these words. Even though your eyes will see or, your brain and your mouth has to be trained to say the er sound and not the er sound, okay? So do it with me. First, we'll practice and get our mouths to remember the sound of er, okay? Ready? Say it after me or with me. Dancer, teacher, baker, farmer, waiter, okay? In all of those words, of course, they were spelt with a R, and they had the sounder R. Now all of these words are going to be spelt with or, but you're still going to say what? You're still going to say are, okay? Here we go. Actor, doctor, tailor, author, mayor, okay, those are people. Now, let's look at some things, okay? Or ideas or other words. Factor. You know there is some very popular show called Fear Factor. I hope you're saying factor and not factor, okay? Factor, color, terror, honor, error, okay? Don't make an error when you're pronouncing the word error. Don't say error. Say error, okay? Let's keep going. These were shorter words with 2 syllables, but the same principle applies even if we have longer words, like here with 3 syllables. Ready? Here we go. Professor, visitor, bachelor, survivor. Another popular show, right? Okay. Also, some more things. Monitor, reactor, like a nuclear reactor behavior, equator. What's the equator? The equator is an imaginary line that goes around the Earth and divides it between the northern and southern hemisphere. Okay? Now, let's look at some longer words, okay? Ambassador, supervisor, terminator. Okay? A lot of people have seen that movie. Okay. Elevator, refrigerator, calculator. Okay? Excellent. Thank you for sticking with me in this lesson, because if you did make this mistake, then you have just corrected something very major. Okay, you've corrected so many words that you could possibly say in your English speaking life. Now move to the pronunciation of words ending with tion, sion, cin, and tin. And all of those, it's pronounced shun at the end, shun. So, it's different spellings, different endings, but the pronunciation is shun for all of them. Okay, so I'm just going to read through them, and so that you can hear how they sound, okay? So, here we go. So, action, condition, direction, location, mention, nation, station. Okay, so, shun, shun, shun. And then again, with these, discussion, expression, mansion. If you're not familiar with that, it means a big, big house, an important-looking house, a mansion. Okay, pension, profession, session version. So, shun, shun, shun all the way through. Okay, and then this, electrician, magician, musician, optician, politician, suspicion. And you can see here, these are CIN, but this one at the end is CION. But it's still the same. Shun, politician, suspicion. Okay? And then finally, these spelt with TIN. And for some reason, they all have a capital letter because they're all referring to places. So, Egyptian, Martian, that's from the planet Mars, and Venetian from Venice in Italy, So, and from Egypt, of course. So, Egyptian, Martian, Venetian. Okay? So, all these different spellings, but they all result in shun at the end. Okay? Then we have a list second sound here. These look similar. We've got SION again, just like here SION. But this time it's jun, not shun, but jun. So it's a heavier sound. In fact, these two consonant sounds, sh and jash, they're a pair of consonants. And the only difference is that one is lighter, the other is heavier using more of the vocal cords. So, zesh, jash, jash, jash. You get more vibration in your vocal cords with this one. So, collision, conclusion, decision, occasion, revision, television, So. I'm exaggerating the sound a little bit just to show that it's a bit different from shun. jun, shun, jun. But I'll just read them again in a less exaggerated way. Okay? So, collision, conclusion, decision, occasion, revision, television, right. So that's jun. And then we have another third sound one, which is chun, chun at the end. So, again, you wouldn't expect this because we've got tin here, which is like here. But it's the same, different, and tion again. So this is chun, 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 chun. So, Christian, question, suggestion. So, again, I was exaggerating that a bit. So I'll read them again, not exaggerated, so, Christian, question, suggestion. Okay? So, there's no real rule to follow, I don't think, about whether it should be shun or jun or chun, but it's just something that you have to learn with each word, each group of words. But at least you can see here that a lot more words end with the shun sound. These others, there aren't so many of them, so, that's one good thing, perhaps. Okay? So, now move to the pronunciation secret that will help you to say English words more easily and correctly, especially long, difficult ones. Okay? Now, this is actually a professional technique that's used by actors and singers and linguists and lots of people who have learned many different languages and want to or need to pronounce words correctly and authentically. Okay? Now, the reason why pronunciation is difficult for everyone when you're learning a new language is because when we grow up speaking our native language, our ears get used to hearing certain sounds, and our mouths get used to making certain sounds. And when we learn a new language like English, then you have to train both your ear and your mouth to work a little bit differently. Okay? Now the other part is, because English is not phonetic, it's not completely phonetic. A large part of it is, some people say about 80 to 85% is phonetic, but a lot of it is not phonetic. What does that mean? That means when we see a word, the way we say it is not the way it looks. Right, so, there's also that factor to take into account. But this technique can help you with both of these difficulties. Okay? So first, let's look at what we normally do when you're learning how to pronounce a word. Okay? So normally what we do is we do something called front chaining, and I'm going to explain to you exactly what that is. But what I'm going to teach you in this lesson, the secret is something called back chaining. And that's what we will practice. Now, let's take our first example and do what people normally do. Even teachers. Even SL teachers. All right. When they're teaching classrooms, they don't normally spend that much time on pronunciation because they don't have time. There's so much to teach and the class is so big. There's so many students. It's difficult to spend time on pronunciation. So naturally, people have a harder time learning that and mastering that, and if you think about it. When a child is born and when a child is growing up, it doesn't learn to read first. It just learns by listening. So this is an opportunity to listen afresh, like new in a different way to words, so that you can reproduce the correct sound, the correct pronunciation. Okay? So let's take our first example. And our first example is the word pronunciation. Okay? Because, by the way, a lot of people do not say this word correctly. Now, let's do it in the standard way, front chaining, and see what happens. So in front chaining, we start pronouncing or saying the word from the front and going forward. So if I did that, if I was teaching you how to say this word by using front chaining, I would say to you, you need to say it like this. Pronunciation. Okay, I've divided up here just to make it a little bit easier for you to see and hear the syllables. Okay? This long word happens to have 5 parts, 5 syllables, right? So it's quite long. Pronunciation. So when a student hears that, they're like, oh my God, I have to learn so many different sounds. And it's a little bit scary because there are 5 sounds, that have to follow. So what happens when you feel scared or nervous about something? Your brain shuts down. You don't learn as effectively. You don't learn as well as when you're happy and relaxed. So the advantage of learning in through the other system, the other technique called back chaining, is that you feel much more relaxed because when we did it from the front, we had to learn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sounds. But look what happens when we use back chaining. So back chaining is a technique that teaches you how to pronounce words starting from the end. So let's do that now and see what happens. So let's just take this last syllable and we can say tie on. So all you have to learn right now is the word tie on, not word, part of the word. Next ation, you can repeat it after me. Ation, sheation, sheation, nunciation, nunciation. And last, pronunciation, pronunciation. So what happened? When we started to say this word, and especially if it's a word that's really strange, you've never heard it. All you had to learn was 1 sound, not 5. So it's not scary, it's manageable. It's something you can do. It's something you feel relaxed about. We're breaking down this word into small, manageable chunks. All right? And whenever something's small and manageable, we feel much more relaxed. So your brain is also going to cooperate with you much more. Okay, so that's what I did. I basically back-chained this word pronunciation for you. Now, with the next example, I'm going to go 1 step further because, as I mentioned, English is not always phonetic. So what if we back-chained, plus we wrote it in a way that actually is what you're supposed to say? So let's do that. So here's this word. Information. Okay? Information for syllables. If we front-chained it, that's what you do. But let's back-chain it. And this time, I've written it phonetically the way it actually should be said, not the way it's spelled. Don't worry about how it's spelled. We're not teaching spelling here. We're teaching pronunciation. So, how does tie-in actually sound? Because it's a T-I-O-N, right? It sounds something like this, shun, T-on. Okay? So just say, shun, shun. Next, may shun, may shun. Good. Next, fur may shun, fur may shun. Don't worry about the spelling changes. Fur may shun. Next, infer may shun, infer may shun. Okay, now what happened? Yes, there were spelling changes. Doesn't matter. Here, we're not. We don't care about that. We care about how does this word actually sound? So write it in a way that will help you to say it properly based on what you hear. Now, how do you know how the word is supposed to be pronounced? Well, you go to a good dictionary. For example, the Cambridge English Dictionary shows you how to pronounce every single word in a British way and in an American way. What we teach on Bookish English is usually the American way. Okay, so here, what I'm teaching you is the American pronunciation. So you can use any kind of good, reputable online dictionary. All right. To teach you the correct pronunciation, and then back-chain it like that, and you will end up with a much more accurate present pronunciation of the words. Now, you can not only use this technique for words, You can actually also use it for phrases and sentences. But I don't recommend that if you're doing it by yourself. It's better if you're listening to a real teacher in a live classroom who is a native English speaker, and she or he can teach you the correct intonation and everything. But it is definitely useful for you to use with words. Let's try a few more words. You know that this is one of those lessons that's going to help you to make a big breakthrough, right? Good. I'm glad you know that. Let's get started. All right. This word, front chaining February. Okay, let's try it the other way, through back chaining. Ready? Ray, say it after me. Eri, ru, eri. February, ru, eri. Okay, this is actually a word that's mispronounced by lots of students because they sometimes say February. It's not February, eri. It's February, ru, eri. Re-eri, ru-eri. February, ru-eri. Now you've got it. Good. Next one. Wednesday, let's back chain it. Okay, are you ready? Look how easy it gets when you actually just listen. Don't look at the word. Just listen. Wednesday. Now let's back chain it. Ready? Day, Wednesday. Do you see how easy it became when we did the two things? We back chained it, plus we wrote it phonetically. We wrote what we should actually be saying. Day, Wednesday. Good. Let's try a third one, ambassador. Let's back chain it. Dare, adair, ambassadeur, ambassadeur. Okay? Good. Very good. Ambassador. And it doesn't matter that here it was being pronounced. Sorry, spelt with an A. The actual sound isn't ambassador, it's ambassadeur. So, dare, adair, ambassadeur, ambassadeur. You've mastered the correct pronunciation of this word and many other words that end like that, by the way. Okay, next. Knowledge. So many letters ... so many useless letters in terms of our pronunciation. Right? Let's see what happens when we back chain it and when we write it phonetically. Are you ready? Lidge. There's only two parts now. Now, lidge. There are only two parts, really, to the sound of this word, the pronunciation of this word. Lidge. Now, lodge. Isn't it much easier? Don't you find it much more enjoyable to say this word than this word? I hope so. Okay, now lodge. Lodge now, now lodge. Ready. Okay, psychiatrist. Okay, psychiatrist. Again, lots and lots of letters, right? And let's start from the end. But this time you do it, and then I'll do it. Okay? So back chain it. Did you get it? Let's try together. Trist, atrist, chiatrist, psychiatrist. Okay? Excellent. All right. If you were able to back chain these words, then you could back chain any words. All right. And remember, this is a strategy that's used by the professionals. The linguists teach it. The actors use this when they need to act a part, and it's a different pronunciation. They need to play a British actor or an Australian actor. This is how they master the techniques, the correct pronunciation. And you can do it. So I'm glad. I'm so glad that you watched this lesson today, so you could also save so much time and improve your pronunciation with a very big breakthrough. Okay, if you enjoyed this lesson, and if you have not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do that now so you can continue to get lots of lessons that will save you probably years of time in terms of your English learning. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.